Emily Hart was never the loudest person in the room, and she certainly wasn't the most flashy competitor at the regional canine trials. While other handlers shouted commands, clapped their hands, or wore bright, eye-catching outfits, Emily wore simple clothes and spoke in a soft voice, so low it was almost a whisper. At first glance, she seemed easy to overlook, but those who paid attention knew better. Behind her calm exterior was a deep bond with her dog Max that made her a contender no one could ignore. The trials were held every year in the same large indoor arena, drawing teams from all over the region. The crowd filled the stands with chatter and applause, excited to see dogs perform incredible feats of obedience, agility, and teamwork. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and many of the teams used the loud, commanding style that seemed to fit the high-energy environment. But Emily had a different approach. She had never been interested in competing just to win. For her, the connection she shared with Max mattered most. Max was a chocolate Labrador with big, gentle eyes and a patient spirit. He wasn't the fastest runner or the most obedient dog on the field, but he had something special he understood Emily in a way that words couldn't explain. Emily's quiet nature often made people underestimate her. Some assumed that because she rarely raised her voice, her training wasn't serious or effective. But Emily didn't mind. She had learned early on that her style worked best for her and Max, and that's all that mattered. The story of how Emily and Max came together was part of what made their team so unique. Max had not come from a typical breeder or a competitive training program. Instead, Emily had adopted him from a local shelter where he had been overlooked because of his shy personality. When she first met him, Max was timid and nervous, afraid of loud noises and sudden movements. Emily saw beyond his fears and knew he deserved a chance. Over months of gentle care, patient training, and countless quiet conversations, Max grew more confident. Emily never pushed him too hard or rushed the process. Instead, she matched her pace to his, speaking softly and rewarding every small success. They built trust through shared calmness rather than command. This slow, steady approach became their foundation. Max learned to listen not just to words, but to Emily's subtle gestures and expressions. Emily learned to read Max's signals when he was focused, when he was confused, and when he was ready to move. Together, they formed a partnership that felt less like a trainer and dog, and more like two friends working as one dot at the trials. Emily's style stood out like a quiet breeze in a storm. While other handlers shouted and gestured loudly, she used a softer touch, relying on Max's keen sense of awareness. Their routines were smooth and precise, but they never sought attention with flashy moves or dramatic flair. Instead, their performances felt almost effortless, as if they were simply enjoying being together rather than trying to prove something. Many spectators were drawn to Emily and Max, curious about the calm energy they radiated. Some even came to admire their teamwork, whispering to friends about how unusual and inspiring it was. But there were still skeptics, judges, and competitors who wondered if quiet signals were enough to compete at such a high level. Emily didn't let doubts shake her confidence. She believed that respect, patience, and understanding were the true keys to success with Max. Winning wasn't about making noise or showing off. It was about connection. And that year, as the regional trials approached, Emily was ready to show the world what that connection could achieve. Asterisk. The story of Emily and Max was one of patience, trust, and quiet determination. Max wasn't born for the spotlight. When Emily first brought him home from the shelter, he was a frightened ball of fur, trembling at the slightest sound. The shelter workers called him timid and said he might never adjust to a busy home. But Emily saw something else, a spark of potential. Beneath that shy exterior, from day one, Emily approached Max differently than most new dog owners. She didn't force him into obedience or try to rush his training. Instead, she let him explore his new environment at his own pace. She watched him closely, learning his favorite spots, the way his tail wagged when he was comfortable, and the little ways he showed nervousness. Slowly, she began to build a world where Max could feel safe. Every morning, Emily spent time sitting quietly on the floor beside Max, letting him come to her when he was ready. She spoke to him in low, soothing tones, never raising her voice. The more time they spent together, the more Max began to relax. The fear started to fade, replaced by curiosity and a growing trust in Emily. Training sessions were gentle and consistent. Instead of loud commands, Emily used soft words paired with hand signals, rewarding Max with small treats and lots of praise when he got it right. The progress was slow but steady. Each day, Max learned a little more about what was expected, and Emily learned how to better communicate with him. This slow, patient approach made all the difference. Where some dogs might have shut down under pressure, Max flourished. The bond between them grew stronger with every quiet moment they shared. Emily learned to read Max's body language, a slight tilt of the head, the position of his ears, the look in his eyes, and Max learned to watch for Emily's subtle signals. Their relationship wasn't just about training. It was about friendship. Emily knew that to get the best from Max, she needed to understand him as a whole being, not just a dog that followed commands. She celebrated his small victories and never punished mistakes. She believed that kindness and patience would bring out the best in Max. Their routine became a series of small rituals: morning walks through the park, afternoons practicing simple commands in the backyard, evenings curled up together with quiet music playing. These moments weren't glamorous or dramatic, but they laid the foundation for something powerful. As Max grew more confident, Emily introduced him to new challenges. She brought him to the local dog park, where he could practice socializing with other dogs, always staying close and reassuring him with soft words. They started attending obedience classes, where Emily's calm presence helped Max stay focused. Despite the distractions, it wasn't always easy. Some days Max would retreat or refuse to cooperate, overwhelmed by noise or unfamiliar surroundings. But Emily never gave up. She knew that trust wasn't built overnight, and that setbacks were part of the journey. She stayed patient, offering comfort and encouragement until Max was ready to try again. Through all of this, Max began to transform. The timid shelter dog, who once trembled at loud noises, became a confident companion, eager to learn and please. He developed a quiet grace and attentiveness that caught the attention of everyone around him: friends, trainers, and eventually competitors. Emily's friends often marveled at the change. "It's like he understands you on a whole different level," they would say. "You two are more than a team. You're connected." Emily would just smile. She knew it wasn't magic, just time, patience, and a deep respect for Max's unique personality. Their friendship was a quiet one, built on trust rather than force, and it was the foundation of everything they would achieve together. As the regional trials approached, Emily felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Max was ready to show the world what they could do, but not with loud commands or flashy moves. Instead, they would rely on the silent language they had developed, the bond that spoke louder than any words. Their journey was far from over, but Emily knew one thing for sure: the friendship born from patience was the strongest thing they had, and it would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. The regional trials were unlike any competition Emily and Max had ever entered. It was the biggest event of the season, drawing talented teams from all over 3 states. The arena buzzed with excitement, filled with eager spectators and handlers who had spent years perfecting their routines. For many, this was the moment to shine, to prove that their training and hard work had paid off. Emily felt a mix of nerves and determination as she arrived with Max that morning. Unlike many of the other handlers, who came in flashy uniforms and carried a confident swagger, Emily wore simple jeans and a soft sweater. She carried Max's leash loosely in her hand and spoke to him in her usual quiet tone, calming herself and him with familiar words. Max seemed to sense the importance of the day. His usual relaxed demeanor was sharpened by focus. The years of quiet training had prepared him for moments like this, but the pressure was still real. The crowd's chatter, the bright lights, and the sudden noises of other dogs competing made the arena feel like a whirlwind. Emily watched as the previous teams performed. Loud commands rang out, sharp whistles sliced through the air, and dogs jumped, twirled, and dashed with precision. The judges nodded approvingly at every flawless move, occasionally exchanging knowing glances that told the crowd who was likely to win. It was easy to feel overshadowed in a setting like this. Emily knew that many people were already dismissing her and Max as underdogs. They might never understand how much work and heart went into their quiet approach. But Emily believed in their connection. She believed Max could hear her even when she barely whispered. As her turn approached, Emily took a deep breath. She decided to do something bold. Instead of relying on verbal commands, she would communicate with Max only through subtle, non-verbal signals, the ones they had practiced endlessly at home. She wanted to show that a quiet partnership could hold its own against the loudest voices. Some handlers whispered behind their hands, unsure if Emily's approach would work. A few judges raised their eyebrows, curious to see if the quiet team could deliver a routine worthy of the top prize. Emily welcomed the challenge. She knew that if Max was ready, their performance could speak volumes without a single word. When Emily stepped into the ring, the crowd hushed slightly, sensing something different. Max stayed close by her side, alert and calm. Emily gave a barely perceptible nod, just the slightest tilt of her head, and Max responded instantly, moving forward with confidence. Throughout the course, Emily's signals were subtle. A gentle lift of her hand, a brief glance, a shift of her body. Max followed them perfectly, weaving through poles with grace, leaping through hoops as if flying, and sitting patiently when asked. The entire routine flowed like a silent conversation between two old friends. The crowd watched, captivated by the quiet elegance of their performance. There were no loud commands, no dramatic gestures, just an unspoken understanding that made every move feel natural and true. Even the judges, known for their critical eyes, leaned in with interest. Emily felt a surge of pride. This was what she had worked for, not applause or flashy tricks, but a moment of pure connection with Max in front of everyone. She stayed calm, letting Max take the lead, trusting that their bond would guide them through. As the final obstacle was cleared, Emily gave a small, almost invisible signal. Max stopped perfectly on cue, tail wagging softly. For a moment, the arena was silent. Then, a wave of applause swept through the stands, not loud and boisterous, but warm and genuine. Challenge had been met. Emily and Max had shown that quiet confidence could stand tall in a world full of noise. But the real test was yet to come. Would the judges recognize the power of their silent teamwork? Emily held her breath, waiting for the verdict. The moment Emily stepped into the arena, everything around her seemed to fade away. The noise of the crowd, the flash of cameras, even the buzz of the announcer's voice became distant echoes. Her focus narrowed to just one thing: Max. Emily had made a choice for this performance. No verbal commands. Not a single word. She would rely solely on subtle, non-verbal signals, the quiet language she and Max had developed through months of patient training. It was a risk, but one she felt confident enough to take. Standing at the starting line, Emily kept her body relaxed, her breathing steady. Max sat beside her, alert and waiting for the slightest cue. The tension in the arena was palpable, as spectators and judges wondered what this quiet team would do. Emily gave a barely noticeable nod, just a tiny movement of her chin, and Max rose smoothly, moving forward with a calm confidence that spoke volumes. From that first step, it was clear their connection was something rare. Throughout the course, Emily used small gestures, a gentle lift of her wrist, the tilt of her head, a shift in her shoulders. Each movement was so slight that most in the audience would have missed it if they weren't paying close attention. But Max saw everything. He read her signals like an open book, responding instantly and precisely. He weaved through a line of all the poles with flawless rhythm, his body moving like water around each obstacle. When it was time to jump through hoops, Max leapt gracefully, landing perfectly on the other side. He even paused when Emily's hand briefly rose, sitting silently and watching for the next command. The crowd, at first skeptical, became utterly captivated. There was a quiet magic to their performance, a silent conversation between handler and dog that required no words. The usual chaos of barking, clapping, and whistles was replaced by a hushed reverence, as if everyone was witnessing something truly special. Emily's heart beat steadily. She didn't rush or push Max. She let the silent signals guide him, trusting the bond they had built over years of gentle training. It was more than just obedience. It was understanding, trust, and respect, all wrapped into one seamless performance. When Max reached the final obstacle, a tricky series of jumps requiring perfect timing, Emily gave the smallest signal, a barely perceptible tilt of her hand. Max responded instantly, clearing the jumps with ease and confidence. As he finished, he turned back to Emily, eyes bright and tail wagging gently. The arena stayed silent for a moment, the audience holding their breath as the judge leaned forward, watching closely. Then, slowly, the applause began, a soft murmur that swelled into warm, heartfelt cheers. People were moved not just by the skill, but by the quiet power of their connection. Emily smiled softly, proud but calm. She and Max had done something rare. They had shown that words weren't always necessary, that sometimes the smallest signals could speak the loudest. As she led Max off the field, a few spectators approached, whispering their admiration. "That was incredible," one said. "I've never seen anything like it." Another nodded. "You two have a connection that's truly special." But the most important reaction was from the judges. Emily knew they were experts who had seen countless performances. If they recognized the skill and trust behind every silent cue, it would mean everything. Emily allowed herself a quiet moment of hope. She and Max had faced the challenge on their own terms. Now it was time to see if that was enough. The crowd had been watching Emily and Max's performance with a growing sense of awe. Their routine had been unlike anything anyone had seen that day, a dance of silent signals and perfect obedience. But what truly made it remarkable was the calm precision with which Max moved, following Emily's subtle gestures without hesitation. As Max glided through the obstacles, there was a fluidity to his motions that captured the audience's attention. Each weave through the poles was smooth, like the gentle bend of a river around rocks. Every leap through hoops seemed effortless, yet perfectly timed. The silence was so complete that it almost felt sacred, as if the dog and handler had stepped into a world of their own. Emily's heart was steady, but inside, a quiet thrill surged through her. She had practiced this routine countless times in their backyard, where no one was watching. But now, under the bright lights and with hundreds of eyes fixed on them, the pressure was immense. And yet, Max didn't falter. The key was trust. Emily had taught Max to watch her body, to anticipate her intentions, even when she didn't speak. And Max had learned to listen with more than just his ears. He listened with his eyes, his senses, and his heart. At one point, the routine called for Max to pause and sit at the center of the arena. Emily gave a tiny nod, barely visible to anyone not paying close attention. Max halted mid-step and dropped into a perfect sit, his eyes locked on Emily's. The moment was so quiet, so still, that it drew a collective breath from the crowd. The next signal came, a slight raise of Emily's hand, and Max sprang into motion again, bounding toward the final series of jumps. Each hurdle was cleared with impeccable timing. Max's paws barely seemed to touch the ground as he landed, and his tail wagged with quiet excitement. Emily kept her movements minimal, conserving her energy and relying on the subtle communication they had honed over the years. The silence between them was not empty. It was filled with understanding, with the unspoken language of partnership. When Max finished the last jump and turned to face Emily, there was a gentle glow in his eyes. He was waiting for her next cue. But there was no need. The routine was complete. Emily gave a small smile, reached down, and petted Max's head gently, a silent "well done" that meant everything. For a moment, the arena was completely still. Then, the crowd erupted not with the loud cheers typical of the trials, but with a warm, respectful applause that seemed to ripple through the space like a wave. Many people were on their feet, some wiping tears from their eyes. They had witnessed something extraordinary, not just a dog's skill, but a beautiful example of trust, patience, and connection. The judges, known for their strict standards, exchanged looks. Emily caught the eye of the head judge, who nodded slowly, a hint of admiration in his gaze. This was no ordinary performance. It was a lesson in what could be achieved when words were set aside and true understanding took their place. As Emily and Max left the ring, other competitors approached with congratulations. Some admitted they had doubted the quiet approach at first, but now saw its power. "You've changed the way I think about training," one said. "It's not about volume, it's about connection." Emily felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The routine had gone exactly as she hoped, not just flawless in execution, but full of meaning. She and Max had communicated without words, and in that silence, spoken louder than anyone else. Backstage, Emily took a moment to calm herself. She knew the competition wasn't over yet. The final scores would be announced soon, and the judges would decide who took the top honors. But no matter what happened, Emily felt proud of what they had accomplished. Max rested his head on her lap, tail wagging softly. For him, it wasn't about winning ribbons or trophies. It was about the bond they shared, the quiet signals that said, "I trust you, and I'm here." In a world filled with noise and hurry, Emily and Max had found their own way. Silent, flawless dance that left everyone who watched speechless. The judges had retired to their table to deliberate, their faces serious and focused. The audience buzzed with quiet speculation. Emily sat quietly with Max at her side, her heart pounding with anticipation. The routine had gone better than she could have hoped, but she knew the competition was fierce. Many other handlers had brought polished, loud, and flashy performances, and the judges had plenty to consider. Minutes felt like hours. Emily gently stroked Max's fur, whispering soft reassurances to her loyal companion. Max leaned into her hand, calm and patient, unaware of the weight the moment carried. Suddenly, the arena announcer's voice rang out. "And now, the judges will demonstrate a special moment from today's competition." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't expected to be called back, not for a demonstration, and certainly not during the final moments of the event. The crowd hushed, curious to see what was about to unfold. The judges stood in the center of the arena, and the head judge motioned for Emily and Max to join them. Emily's mind raced. Why would the judges want her and Max? Was this some kind of honor or an unusual challenge? She gave Max a reassuring smile and stepped forward. The head judge addressed the crowd. Today, we witnessed many impressive performances, but one team stood out for something extraordinary, a silent partnership built on trust and subtle communication. We would like to demonstrate just how remarkable this connection is. The judge turned to Emily. Would you mind giving us a simple signal, something you use during your routine? Emily nodded. She raised her hand gently, just as she had done throughout the trial. Instantly, Max responded. But then, something unexpected happened. Max didn't just follow the basic signal. He performed a series of intricate, precise actions each, more complex than the last without a single verbal command. The dog moved through the obstacles with a fluid grace that left the audience breathless. Emily's heart swelled with pride. Max was showing the judges exactly what their quiet communication meant. The crowd watched in awe as Max completed the SC demonstration flawlessly, executing moves that required incredible focus and trust. When the final signal was given, Max stopped perfectly, sat down, and looked at Emily with a look of calm confidence. The arena erupted in applause once more, louder and more enthusiastic than before. The head judge smiled broadly. This is what true teamwork looks like. Emily and Max have shown us all that strength doesn't always come from volume or force. Sometimes the quietest signals carry the deepest meaning. Backstage, Emily was still absorbing what had just happened. Other handlers came up to congratulate her, many visibly moved by the demonstration. You've redefined what it means to train a dog, one said. Your bond is inspiring. But even with the praise, Emily knew this was only the beginning. The competition results were still to come, and she had no idea how the judges would score their silent routine against the more traditional performances. As she sat quietly with Max, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, regardless of the outcome. She had proven something vital, that trust, patience, and understanding could create a partnership stronger than any shouted command. The announcement of the winners was about to begin. Emily took a deep breath, ready for whatever came next, knowing that no matter the result, she and Max had already won in the most important way. The arena was filled with a tense silence as the announcer stepped back to the microphone. The crowd leaned in, eager to hear the results that would decide the day's champion. Emily stood with Max quietly by her side, her hands clasped loosely. In front of her, heart pounding beneath her calm exterior, Emily's mind raced through all the moments leading up to this. The long hours of training in the quiet corners of their home, the gentle hand signals, the countless small victories that no one but Max and she had ever seen. The journey they had taken together was unlike any other, and now it was about to be judged on the biggest stage. The announcer cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, the judges have made their decision. Today's winner of the regional TRILS is ... Emily and Max. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Then, the crowd erupted into applause, cheers rising like a wave that washed over the arena. Emily blinked, stunned but filled with a warm glow of pride. Max wagged his tail, his eyes bright and trusting. As Emily accepted the prize, a gleaming trophy and a ribbon, she glanced around the arena. Faces were smiling, some moist with tears, all touched by what they had witnessed. The judges approached, nodding in respect and admiration. The head judge stepped forward and spoke quietly but firmly. Emily, your performance was not only technically flawless, but it brought something extraordinary to this competition. You and Max reminded us that connection and trust are the foundation of any great team. Emily felt a rush of gratitude. This was more than a win. It was recognition of the quiet language she and Max had spoken all along. Later, in an interview with the local press, Emily shared her story. She spoke about patience, about listening carefully to Max, and about the power of nonverbal communication. She explained how their bond wasn't built on force or loud commands, but on respect and understanding. The story spread quickly, capturing hearts beyond the dog training community. People were inspired by Emily and Max's journey, seeing in it a metaphor for how gentle persistence and empathy could change lives. For Emily, the victory was sweet, but it wasn't the end. It was a new beginning, proof that quiet strength could stand alongside the loudest voices. She was already thinking about the future, new challenges, new goals, and more moments to share with Max. Back at home that evening, Emily and Max settled into their familiar routine. The trophy sat on the shelf, a reminder of their achievement, but the real prize was the bond they had nurtured together. Emily whispered softly, "We did it, Max. You showed everyone what we already knew." Max rested his head on her lap, eyes closing in contentment. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been theirs, quiet, patient, and full of love. And in that quiet moment, Emily knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning of many incredible stories to come. Asterisk, with the applause still echoing in her ears, and the trophy gleaming on the shelf at home, Emily felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. Winning the regional trials was more than just a victory. It was validation of a journey she and Max had taken together, built on trust, patience, and quiet understanding. But even as the spotlight faded, Emily knew the real story was far from over. In the days following the competition, invitations poured in. Dog training schools wanted her to teach her unique approach. Local shelters asked if she could help train rescue dogs. Even schools and therapy programs reached out, intrigued by the power of silent communication. Emily welcomed the opportunities with an open heart. She knew firsthand how much difference a gentle, patient connection could make, not just in competitions, but in everyday life. Max, ever calm and steady, accompanied her on many of these new adventures. Together, they demonstrated that training a dog was about more than commands. It was about building a bridge between two beings, a language that transcended words. One afternoon, Emily found herself at a community center, surrounded by children with special needs. As she gently guided Max through simple routines, the children watched in awe. Max's calm presence seemed to soothe and inspire, encouraging even the shyest kids to try. Emily smiled, realizing this was the true reward. The applause from the arena was wonderful, but the quiet moments like this, when a child's face lit up with joy, or a rescue dog learned to trust again, were priceless. Her story, once a local sensation, soon reached a wider audience. Emily was invited to speak at conferences and write articles about her methods. But through it all, she remained humble, always crediting Max for the partnership they shared. "What we have," she told audiences, "is a language beyond words. It's about listening with your heart and trusting each other." Back home, Emily and Max kept their routines simple. Early morning walks, quiet training sessions in the backyard, and evenings curled up together. Their bond grew stronger every day, a testament to years of patience and love. Though trophies and praise were nice, Emily knew the greatest gift was the trust Max had given her, and that she had given him in return. One evening, as the sun set in warm gold across the sky, Emily sat on the porch with Max resting beside her. She thought about the journey they had taken from shy beginnings to regional champions, from quiet practice sessions to inspiring others. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Max, for listening, for trusting, for being you." Max lifted his head, eyes shining in the fading light, and gave a soft, happy sigh. Their story was one of quiet strength, a reminder that sometimes the smallest signals carry the loudest meaning. And with that, Emily knew they were ready for whatever adventures lay ahead, because some bonds are unspoken, unbreakable, and forever.